In this video, we will explore the available color modes that can be used within Indesign CS6, along with the difference between spot and process colors. Before we dive into working with colors in Indesign in this chapter, it is important to understand certain color concepts, so this video focuses more on the explanation of various concepts rather than demonstration. However, I will provide a few examples. When using Indesign CS6, you can designate colors as either spot or process color types, which relate to the two main ink types used in commercial printing. When applying color in your document, keep in mind the final medium in which the artwork will be published, so that you will apply color using the most appropriate color mode. So first we'll talk about spot color. A spot color is a special pre-mixed ink that is used instead of or in addition to process inks, and requires its own printing plate on a printing press. Use spot colors when few colors are specified and color accuracy is crucial. Spot color inks can accurately reproduce colors that are outside the scope of process colors. For best results, minimize the number of spot colors you use. Each spot color you create within your document will generate an additional spot color printing plate for a printing press. Therefore, it increases your printing costs. If you think you might require more than 4 colors, consider printing your document using process colors. Next, we'll discuss process color. A process color is printed using a combination of the 4 standard process inks: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, which is collectively called CMYK. Use process colors when a job requires so many colors that using individual spot inks would be expensive or impractical. For example, process colors would be a good choice when printing color photographs. Now that we've discussed the basic differences between the spot and process colors, it's important to know that InDesign allows you to define colors using several different color modes. Color modes can be described as mathematical models that define the components of full spectrum color. Available color modes in InDesign CS6 include CMYK, RGB, and Lab or LAB. We will review each of these color models and discuss when they should be used when working within InDesign. First, we'll discuss RGB color mode. RGB stands for red, green, and blue, and is the color model used for all electronically displayed documents. If you recall from Chapter 1 in one of the first tutorials, specifying a document as a web document during the initial document setup will automatically change all colors to RGB. The RGB color mode is similar to CMYK, but instead of 100% of each component color creating black, creates pure white. RGB is the most common color mode used when creating graphics, although graphics to be commercially printed are eventually converted to CMYK mode. Because of this eventual conversion for printed documents, you may want to be careful which RGB colors you use, as not all RGB colors can be converted to CMYK. Although InDesign will suggest a similar color if this is the case, which we'll see in a few of our subsequent videos. Again, I just want to point out that a conversion from RGB to CMYK will occur when you're sending your publication to be commercially printed. If you're working with RGB and plan to do the printing from your own printer, simply print the document and let the print drivers of your printer go to work. So to demonstrate, I'm going to explain the image that I have displayed here on the screen. The software application that I'm using to display this image is Adobe Photoshop. The reason I'm using Photoshop to view this image is because I'm going to do a little behind-the-scenes investigation when it comes to colors in order to demonstrate the different color modes to you. I'm going to take a look at the channels of this RGB image. Notice that when I select the tab, I can see the individual red, green, and blue channels for the RGB color mode. As I click through each of the colors, notice the image is displayed as either red, green, or blue. When all the colors are combined with white, I see the end result of the koala bear. Again, keep in mind that if I were printing this image in-house myself, I wouldn't need to do anything else, so no conversion is needed. Next, we'll discuss the CMYK color mode. CMYK is a subtractive color mode that is typically used in color printing and is used to describe the printing process as well. CMYK stands for 4 types of ink generally used in color printing: C for cyan, M for magenta, Y for yellow, and K for key, which actually means black. Key is a term used in 4-color printing because printing plates are carefully keyed or aligned with the key of the black key plate. We won't get into too much detail regarding this, but I thought it would be important to understand why K would indicate a black color. In theory, a mixture of cyan, magenta, and yellow will create black, although often printers will print black on its own in order to avoid 3 different colors of ink being placed on top of one another on the paper. To demonstrate CMYK, I'm going to refer back to the image of the koala bear that we looked at moments ago. This time I'm actually going to convert the image to CMYK so that we can look at the individual channels. To do so, I'll select the Image menu, select Mode, and notice my color modes are available to me. RGB is selected now, but I'm going to select CMYK color from the drop-down list. Notice on the right-hand side of the screen in the Channels panel, we see our options for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. I'm going to deselect all of the colors except for cyan to start. Notice that only the cyan color from the image is displayed. Next, I'm going to move to magenta, and magenta is the only thing I see, and finally I'm going to take a look at yellow. Initially, you might think that by selecting cyan, magenta, and yellow, you would be good to go for printing because each color would be represented, and altogether they make black. Look what happens when I select those 3 colors. Although all 3 of those colors are applied, we can definitely tell that something is missing in this photograph. We can't forget to add that final black channel to the image in order to complete its look. The final color mode, Lab or LAB, stands for luminance for the L, plus 2 other components, green to red, which represents the A, and yellow to blue, which represents B, which I can understand could be difficult to remember. It aims to more closely approximate human vision, but is not used by graphic artists for printed materials. To demonstrate, I'm going to change the mode again, but this time I'm going to switch to the Lab color mode. Notice now that my channels look a lot different. In order to demonstrate, I'm going to keep the lightness channel selected and select the A channel. Notice that I can see green to red now. When I switch to lightness and B, notice that I can see yellow to blue colors. Although Lab is an option within InDesign, it's not an option that is ever required, although it does offer flexibility. Because we're more concerned about using RGB and CMYK, we're going to focus more on these color modes in upcoming tutorials. This concludes our tutorial on comparing color modes within InDesign CS6. Hopefully this visual explanation of InDesign's available color modes will help you to grasp the concepts of using color within InDesign even further. To put these concepts to good use, let's continue watching the videos of this chapter.